All right, here we are, coming from a conversation about no one wanting to be a manager to having our management meeting. The main things I've got is we're just sort of moving along on the appeals. Maybe Quentin can tell us about that in a minute. The court is clear that they are having people look at some of the forms we have sent them, so that's a positive thing. How quickly that turns into something, or whether or not that turns into something, is another question. And I'm going to reach out to we've sort of identified that the court service centers are really the stakeholders that we think would be very valuable to have their input, because we think that the stuff we're doing could really help them out a lot. So we're going to try to strengthen those relationships, and not so much in parallel to the court, or not instead of the court, but I suppose in parallel to the court, since we're the trial court, that is. And so that's sort of relationship management stuff that we're doing. But other than that, I got nothing. What other people got? Quentin, you want to talk about appeals for a sec, or?
Not a lot to report. So it seems like we're very close to releasing the single justice appeals form. I got some good feedback from Paul that I took over for Eleni, because she's obviously in finals and on leave break. And I'm going to send that over, and actually during our meeting I'll send it over, because I got it done this morning during our our staff
We're
meeting.
Recorded. You mean?
I mean,
in the interim.
In between, yes. So that's looking pretty good.
Cool.
Nice thing is that it's usable for other topics besides housing from the beginning. So I kind of like that. So if anybody at GBLS, for example, is doing an appeal to single justice and a locatory appeal, they could use that form as soon as it gets live.
Cool. With the small caveat that if they were filing as an attorney, they'd have to download and file it the normal way.
They can tell their clients to file that way.
That's right. A client can file that way. All right. Well, Caroline, with her new glasses, has just popped in my spot, which would be next.
Do we want to do Kate first? Is this the day that she?
Oh, this is the day that
has
not till 1. I don't have to leave till 1.
Okay.
Well, I'm moving. It's just, yeah.
And I don't have anything anyway, really.
Okay, we moved to
yeah. Maybe not this might be a stand-up thing, but what is it that I'm supposed to, so if I did the SME review for a student, there's some email I'm supposed to send them?
No. They're misinterpreting that. If that's well, I think they're misinterpreting that. The students in my class have to get a letter from the partner they're working with. For those who are working in the assembly line, that's me. So they're supposed to ask me to write a letter to myself, which I then do like this. But they're supposed to ask. So.
Okay, because one of the students, I met with a student Friday. They were like, "Oh, can you send me an email saying something like what we?"
Well, they may have just wanted an email.
Well, they said you needed it. They said you needed it.
Then they've misinterpreted that. Well, okay. That's not entirely true. I do ask them to maintain a record of the feedback, but it doesn't have to have been an email. They just need to write something down so they know.
Okay, so if he took notes, okay.
Yeah.
I assumed he was taking his own notes.
There's no formal requirement for me. The formal requirement that they may be referring to is a partner letter, but that comes from me. So they should ask me for that letter, and then I will write myself a letter in air quotes. But yes, they have to.
I was like, wait, am I gonna have to go back for it? Because none of the other students had asked for it. And I was like, wait, am I gonna have to go back and remember what I talked about with all of them? Because I don't.
No, and that letter is basically just supposed to be a letter from there. It's a holdover from when they were working with outside partners, where the idea is I want to know what the outside partner thinks about the work they did.
Okay.
But you can just tell them that you know, as long as they have notes, they're probably good. They just need to memorialize those notes. But there's no formal requirement for a letter.
Okay.
Remind them to read the rubric again and the message I sent out last week, and a couple of other places where I made it
clear.
Good. All right, Caroline. Oh, you're muted.
You're muted, Caroline.
Sorry, I'm doing errands. I'm trying. I have to take 14 days of vacation before December 31st. It's just not going to happen. But so I'm trying to squeeze it in where I can. So I'm doing errands this morning. But two things. So I did some work on Mike Cronin's enforcement of sanitary code, readability stuff. Maeve did some, and then I did a mega one, and there's another mega kind of thing to do. But I'm meeting with him at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I think Maeve is joining us as well, because that needed serious readability edits. And I also put something, so I was looking for something that we did on a reading, Teaching Tuesday, and we didn't actually solve the problem. Pardon?
I probably haven't uploaded it if it was one I recorded.
Yeah, I'm not sure who does the teaching. So this was a Teaching Tuesday. It was just Michelle. Michelle, was it you, me, and who else was in that one? Do you remember? It was 2 weeks.
Don't remember.
2 weeks ago today. So it wasn't last week. It was the week before. Anyway,
Matthew might have been there.
that was last week. There were, I think
Okay.
there were three of maybe he was. I don't remember. But anyway,
Okay.
that could I don't remember. I got those two merged together. But my point is that if we have a Teaching Tuesday and somebody brings up a problem and it doesn't get resolved, if our people go back and look at the video, basically they see us trying to figure out a problem that doesn't get fixed. So what I was proposing is that we actually, in the YouTube comments, if we find a solution, we go back and put the solution into the comments.
That's a wonderful idea.
My proposal. Pardon?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I really
Wonderful
like
idea.
it.
But I think I'm not sure, I thought Maeve posted them. I'm not sure who does YouTube's. So
I do them when Maeve doesn't, which means if Maeve's not in the video, she didn't do it. So
yeah, okay.
it
So
means to me if it wasn't Maeve, wasn't there.
So do you want me to just put the solution?
Ping me the solution. Well,
yeah,
if this was December 1st, I seem to have that video here.
Okay.
In which case, then ping me the solution and I can attach.
Yeah, it's a really weird nested if, and Jonathan solved it, but it was kind of complicated. So I can just copy. I'll just send it to you, or I put it to Maeve and Michelle in the Slack. I think that's it. Except I was talking to Rochelle again yesterday about this 258E, and I told her I don't think we have any doc assembled development resources to do it. And I was supposed to ask about where do we know where people are coming from to do the 209As? Because she said I think she would like to have seen bigger numbers doing them. And I said, well, if we can get the court to, we will, but we don't know if they're advocates, lay advocates, users. And she was suggesting that I forgot about writing the letter to her to send to community advocates about the big change. But I don't know. I was wondering, do we have any information about where people are coming from, to our 209A interview?
We could, right? So Bryce, I don't know if let me see. The version that has the map is not live yet. I can try to figure that out when we're on our call. Let me figure that out. Oh, yeah, actually, never. I don't think we're saving that information for the 209A yet. I was just looking at Google Analytics, and that's not broken down as much by city or anything. I can try to.
So, Quentin, I'm wondering if I'm not quite sure where we are in terms of security and data protection and all that stuff. But I mean, would it be possible to track we have a question about the role of the person who's filing it. So if they're an advocate, if they go, what I'm trying to think is, I can't remember the logic right now. It may be we only ask about the advocate if the person is under 18. That may be, we may not even ask. I just don't remember right now. But that might be something to think about. It might be useful for us to try and grab that information somewhere along the line. Because that would help us with our outreach, right? Figuring out.
Yeah, who's finding it, who's not. I mean, it's a long interview too, so that number I gave was the people who finished it to the end.
Yeah, she understood that, but she's got, I mean, it's this sort of, there's a sort of a two-way thing. Fortunately, but unfortunately, she's got a lot of Clavic money still. And she wants to do another project with it. She's thinking 250 AD. I'm saying, I don't think we have any DOCA. We definitely have SMEs. We have Court Service Center and the Victim Rights Center, both very interested in the 250 AD. But she was saying she wasn't sure it was worth putting money into it, given the low numbers in the 209A. And I said, well, I don't know that they're that low. You compare them with the CDC moratorium, which is much shorter, much easier, and national. And we don't have the court link yet. So that doesn't mean the 209A isn't useful. But then there's this bit about who the heck is going to do the development for it. I don't know if our star, pardon?
It might be good to sit down and think again about like, well, what are the different forms that are part of it?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, because I'm thinking we have some star developers. I don't know if they're going to be around next semester, student ones that I would bet money on. And I wouldn't mind if the project got money from Clavic to do a 250 AD. And I'd be happy to work with one of our special girls who can do this stuff.
What's the requirements in the Clavic money? Like, who can it go to?
So no, can go to. I think it's. Go ahead. Kate knows better.
I mean, Clavic funds me. It's it's supposed to be stuff for victims of crime. In terms of casework, it's any case directly or indirectly arising out of anyone who's a victim of crime. And so, like, I've billed all my time on this to Clavic.
Right. So
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so my question was just going to be, so for those students who aren't continuing on with lab work, who might have some ability to do contracting on the outside, we could also, I think that would be a vehicle as well. To sum up, we got off on an off-track thing, and then we're trying to figure out base rates of 209As and 258Es about overall traffic. All right. I didn't mean to stop the conversation. I just was catching us up.
No problem.
So the point is, we're looking at like 700 a month is probably what's happening in the Commonwealth.
So we're trying to think about how, like, prioritizing 250 ADs, right? That's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
As well as just understanding how the 209A is working.
I mean, the real thing I don't know. Do you think that doing the 258E and then having it so that it was, there was a funnel that brought people in, and it was like, oh, you need a restraining order. Are they, family or not? The criteria to split. Do you think that would make it so that more people would use it? Do you think there are people who aren't using it because it's just the 209A?
I think we could probably improve the SEO. I don't know that needs to be in an interview for which form to use.
No, I think that's...
No, because you would start one or the other.
No, I just mean offerings. Yeah.
If they do have the wrong form, we should redirect them to the right one, I think.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't make them start by saying what kind of form do you need, I think.
Well, the thing is, the requirements for each of them are very specific, and you do have to go through. I don't know if it's like 12 questions to get to the 209. For 209. I mean, in a way, you want 209A because it offers more. If you can get a 209A, you want 209A because it offers more protections and it's easier to qualify for it. However, you do need to go through a number of questions to ascertain whether you qualify or not. And if you don't qualify, then we can send people to 258E. I don't know that it makes sense to ask a whole lot of people questions in the 258E and say, well, it looks like you could do a 209A, because that's a lot of questions to ask people.
From an outsider's perspective, what makes it hard about like just trying to organize it as like restraining order? Like if you want a restraining order, come to this interview, and then inside of the interview, we're like deciding, oh, which form do they actually need, or do you not qualify for either?
Why wouldn't we ask it? Is that what you're saying? Like, why wouldn't we have it?
Well, yeah,
Why
because it
wouldn't we
sounds
have
like
it be one interview and go
yeah,
to
like why can't we have it be one interview where like we're choosing it for them if we can, such that there isn't this issue of, oh, we have to refer them to the other interview.
Do you do like do you know what you want to a 9A 258E? I don't, help me figure it out.
Yeah, like because I mean,
plenty of people are gonna know which one they need.
Well, I guess that's the thing is, I guess I don't know if they. I don't know anything about like the users of this. I know from the outsider, like I didn't know what it was, and I was like once I did, it was like it wasn't super hard, but I don't know if like how much counsel these like most of our like users have coming in.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing, is that people do tend to probably like start out by being told, hey, you should file a 209A, you should file a 258E. That's how they know it's an option to look for, is my sense. I could be like being misled by like the people who start by talking to legal aid. So that could be.
Right.
Right. It could just be it's a self-selecting set.
A lot of times the cops are telling them too.
And telling them 209As. Do the
cops
cops know the difference in general, Kate, between the two?
They think they do.
Don't. Yeah, right. So they probably say you should you need a restraining order.
No, they'll say if it's like, yeah, if it's a DV, if it's like a clear DV situation, they'll say, oh, go get a 209A. And if it's like something where it actually does qualify for a like roommate situations, they'll say, oh, you need a harassment order, which is false. So they can get a 209A, but cops don't know that.
What common things people search? I mean, is one strategy to do more SEO and to like try to get links from like agencies across the state? I mean, I wonder what people's web journey is to try to figure out how to get help.
Yeah, I think, Quentin, though, I think we should only do that once we have a 258E. I mean, I get where Bryce is coming from. I'm wondering if we get a working 258E and then we explore how people get there, what they're asking for, what they know about. And then that can inform us whether because we have to do those separate 258E. I mean, really, we have to do the different questions. And then once we have them, we can decide whether we want to merge them or how we want to merge them or something like that. But if we just get the 258E going, and then we go from there.
I forget, are there any
other thing is the Victim Rights Center. Sorry?
Is it really just the affidavit that's the new form for the 258E?
And there's a different complaint. There's a different complaint form. Everything else,
there's a
think
subset.
Everything else should be the same.
But a bunch of forms we don't need to do.
Yeah, the plaintiff and defendant information forms and the impoundment motion all are the same.
You don't have a children's form, do you?
I'm assuming you can't get a 258E if there are children involved, right? Like,
you can put your kids on a 258E, and I don't know where else you would put them. I don't do a lot with 258E. 258E.
So it sounded to me
for us to automate, because it's so many people who don't get helped at the DV agencies, right?
Yeah, I think Court Service Center is the one dealing with a lot of these.
That's what they said. They said they deal with them a lot.
Then I think then maybe this is part of your answer to Rochelle's question, is then that, maybe some of the numbers, it's because it's a different, like maybe we need to have think about the 258E and the 209A as a package deal, at least as far as acquisition.
Right.
And then the other really important thing is that we haven't done the push because we were waiting to get the court. And maybe, I mean, I think that's the big thing, is we just never, we've been doing this slowly because we wanted to make sure we did it right. So I would just remind Rochelle of that. But I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything now. I think that I think we're in the place where we should start thinking about we're going to keep working with the court and see if that bears fruit. But we should also start thinking about what does our plan B really look like for additional pushes.
Outreach,
and outreach.
pushes?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that dovetails nicely with our discussion of the court service center, because I think actually they'd be a good advocate, especially if they got the 258, if we got the 258E.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the thing is, there may not be a link on mass.gov, but we know court service centers well, they were very enthusiastic about it. So
Yeah,
I assume they're using it, and so it's like a physical oral link, if not a web link, but.
Even
I
there,
feel
like,
like-
the Google ability is helpful though, because they have to know, like, they're not, maybe they bookmarked it, but maybe they just Google each time, and if they don't find it, they kind of forget about it. So
Does Jamie have a database of like DV contacts at police stations? Because honestly, I think that would be effective, would be contacting, if we knew.
That's a great idea.
She had a list of every DV coordinator at all the police stations. And if we don't have a DV coordinator, just the chief, I guess.
Yeah.
I know Jamie has a list of the chiefs. I feel like I've heard her reference that.
Well, I mean, Kate, if she doesn't, I expect she does, but if she doesn't, I bet it would be fairly easy to get because, every police department is going to have, I would imagine there's something that requires them, some sort of regulation that requires them to have some DV training.
Yeah, so you just
you find a DV trainer for the police
attention
force
DV
in
coordinator.
Massachusetts. Yeah, exactly.
You'll get it to the right person.
Yeah, and in fact, that
or
might
DV
be
liaison. They call them different things.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, those DVPD officers have to get training from somewhere, and I bet there's a police training, DV training unit or person or something like that, and that would be cool to get in touch with them.
So we want to be a slide in their training deck.
Yes.
That's basically what we want to do.
Yeah, and just have, because a lot of restraining orders start at the police station.
Yeah, good point.
And that would be nice. And those are typically sloppily done because people are doing them, if you're doing it at the police stations because something just happened. And so people are not, doing really good orders.
Yeah, so I like that as a goal. We want to be a slide on the training deck somewhere.
Yeah.
At least that's a good, heuristic to think about. Okay, well, that was a very management meeting discussion, very good management meeting discussion, strategizing about how to move things forward. Anything else?
And I'll go back to Rochelle and be more positive about the 25080. I just thought we had no developer resources for it. So it sounds like we've got our two students and Michelle.
Well, maybe one student. I mean, it also depends on if there's.
No, I mean that's our pool, is what I mean. Yeah.
If there's it's really a resources question. So if there's money, we can probably find the resources, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I know there are certain students that are looking, that might have had paid jobs at the end of last year that don't know, that might be looking for extra time to do. But we probably their in-class credit time might be demanded.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, I'm just throwing it out to you for you to figure out how you want to.
Yeah. But money does make it easier to, as far as resources, it does free up often the ability.
Well, I've been in a situation where I've had money and no people.
Yeah. No. I'm just saying the money makes it easier.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think we talked about this last week, but I think we just have to juggle around the priority of if the 25080 has momentum and the people who are going to promote it and make it happen. That seems like a good project, honestly, for us to focus on. And then the other two to me are the housing forms collectively and the 30A, which hasn't even been started. So it feels like 258 is a pretty good priority between those.
Right. Well, I also feel like, and appeals is in there too.
And appeals, right? Yep.
So another piece of this is the housing forms. The students are getting them as PDFs because that's how they're posted, because they're part of legal tactics on Mass Legal Help. I think it would be good in the next round. A lot of them should be Word docs because they're, what I mean? So people shouldn't be having check boxes. They should just be having those paragraphs.
I had students in my class mostly do Word documents, but probably some of them didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, and some of mine did
just saying
we had that list of forms of which there was a bunch of PDFs, and then that was expedient for choices.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes.
So I just wanted to put that, just a little note in there, because ultimately it would make sense to have them be Word. I mean, we want to get them out quickly, do PDFs, but on each of them for at post MVP, or if people are a little bit more adventurous, is turn them into Word docs and do them that way. Or, because ultimately, I mean, it makes it easier for the judges to read too, or whoever's reading it, right?
And we'll have, I forgot to say, that just reminded me, but it's not exactly on point. That MLRI paid for some translations of MAID, so all those changes. So those should be new. I got those back, and I have to take some time this week to integrate all those translations and test them. Thanks to all the work Michelle did, should be a lot easier.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we can
Very
talk
cool.
about how to trigger the language ones if you want. And then they will start failing. but then, then you know what's failing. So.
All right. Well then, so I like this. This has been I like when we have these, like, it feels like clarity of direction moments. Because yeah, I mean, really the reason we haven't done 258 is partially because of the fact we were waiting to see how the court was going to respond to it.
Yeah.
So we'll push that forward with alternate parallel track.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Bryce, do you have anything? And we've sort of moved into stand-up time too, so don't feel as if it has to be a.
Fair, yeah. Management wise, I don't think I have anything. I don't know if you think if it's worth it for us to talk with what we chatted about with the appeals court about the OCR stuff and what we might do for them.
Oh yeah. Why don't you give a thumbnail of that?
Yeah. So essentially, a part of the appeals court, which includes, I believe, Tom Carter, Jeffrey Travers, and Gregory Watts were the sort of 3 contact points we had last week. So like specifically not the people we've been working directly with for getting our appeals court forms up. They've been having issues with OCR in documents because their workflow is essentially everything goes through their case management systems. The PDFs get downloaded by judges onto their iPads, and then they try and annotate things. And if you have really bad OCR, that just doesn't exist. You can't, judges can't annotate, they can't search any of their stuff. And so we essentially had just a point meeting, super quick. That was essentially us saying what sort of open source stuff we've been using for OCR and how we've been using it in our things, and sort of brainstorming where it could go for them. And we offered essentially if they could send us 5 or 10 of their problem PDFs that they've run into, because we haven't sort of our OCR stuff is still pretty new. Just some example PDFs where things are failing, then I can write a super quick script, just script with install this package and then run this script, and it will watch for every PDF that goes into this folder and make an OCR copy of it or something. And we can see how it does. If it's sort of looks good enough, then we'll send it. We'll sort of provide it to them and sort of start a working relationship with them. And if it doesn't quite work, then we'll at least be sort of can say oh, it's not quite working because maybe these pain points, and they still have some ideas and are willing to probably pay more than we are for super high quality stuff. But yeah, no, that's more of it's where I think essentially we've talked about it. We're waiting for the sort of example PDFs for them to send over. But yeah, that's sort of, we're mostly just trying to get some sort of a stronger working relationship with the rest of the appeals court, so we can try.
Which is very management-y and strategic, because it's that relationship we want to build on for doing e-filing eventually.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Michelle.
So is this stand-up or is this? Okay.
It is now a mix of both.
Perfect. So one question I want to bring up is kind of Mikhala's starting on the reviews. So she started with motion to modify, the 209A motion to modify Luke and I are working on. And I am going through that. I'm going through the page she did. She made an issue or 2 on GitHub, I think, as she was reviewing that. she made a video of herself using it. My question really is like, how do we want to, what is it, you know, that we can give her out of this? And how do we want to support her in her next steps? And this is, I think, a broader question also about volunteers in general and how kind of we're managing that. I don't have answers. So, but I was going to have a conversation with her, and then I realized I don't know where the project is on that. I don't know where admins are on that. Like, I don't think I can have a conversation that can be like comfortable for her and me, that can, I mean, I can be like, tell me words, and then I will convey them to other people, but like, no, like, okay, we'll work on that, or, you know, there's no like, you know, anyway, that's one thing. There was another thing about the forms that as I was going through her review, and this is a basic questions thing, we might want to think about the like, how do I pick a court question that specifies based on the allowed courts, because right now it's very general. And so that's an idea for an improvement. If I can make an issue for that if we want. But if it's not useful, then I won't. But just, yeah, since we have the capability. Then that's my group things mostly. Stand up, working on tests, students, reviewing Makala's stuff. And we're going to, I think, wait for Luke to get back to do a like language review and a like functionality review of the 209A motion to modify. I suspect when we do a review with y'all, you will say, okay, well, actually, this needs a lot more context, and, you know, this should come before that. And also you need 3 more questions here because it's just, you know, so complicated. So I've not been doing a lot of editing content because I figure it's just all going to change up as soon as we present it to people. But I think we ought to wait for that, for Luke to get back to do that. It seems a little, you know, unfair to do that without him here. He's been such a big part of it.
One just idea is, if we're sharing out links to tests, let's make sure to install them as packages on the server, because then that feedback form button on the bottom of the screen will send the issues to the right repository. I suspect it was probably from Makala that issue got onto the main MA Virtual Court repository because it was running.
So what do we want to
install it on the test server and share the test link
for the feedback repo?
Feedback. What? No. Anytime you're sharing an interview to get feedback, make
install
sure
it. Okay, got it.
Server, so that it doesn't have the playground link, and then it will be able to detect what repository it's part of.
Well, I didn't realize it wouldn't work unless it was installed on the server. Okay.
The only way it can tell what package it's part of is if it's installed. Otherwise, it's part of the playground package and doesn't have any way to detect that.
Okay.
It'll be better for you anyway, because then you don't have to.
Yeah, it would. That would be great. So yeah, good to know. Good piece to document somewhere. I don't know where, but I'll.
Just in general, like installing packages to test them is better than running the playground.
All right, cool. All right, so that gives us some.
But is there? Sorry, I guess after Luke gets back, so we already figured that out. Sorry.
Yeah, that was my things.
Do we have in the Trello checklist? Do we have, you know, before review, install on test server?
No, I don't.
You know, and that would make sense to do that, right?
Be a good documentation. That would be a great place to document it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so here's your
100%.
list. Get a review, but before you get a review, make sure you install it on the test server.
Yeah.
And here's a link to how to install it on the test server in case you don't know.
Yep.
It might be in there actually, but I'll double check.
I feel like the install on test server is somewhere.
I do remember,
but it might be very late.
Well, also,
on the testing.
Also, Luke and I are on a different Trello board, right? Like we're taking the card from the old thing, so I can try and like make a card and like take it through the steps and get it to where we are in some way. And
That
then
might make sense.
that might,
Yeah, it makes a lot.
yeah, yeah, okay. I'll write down that. So,
Let's see. Yeah, when we edit the checklist, unfortunately, like it doesn't copy it onto the existing cards. That's something to be aware of. But
oh, really? I mean, I guess that makes sense. They're just
a template.
instantiated. Okay. When it's created.
Let's see if it's on the board. It might be on board 3. Kind of makes sense.
Okay, so that's my stuff, and keep me up to date on what role I will or won't play in the 258. I cannot find the name of the other form I was going to do, other than the one that I was going to make an MVP of that I think then someone took to make into an actual form. So I'm like not sure if I should make an MVP of it anymore. And that didn't seem to be high priority.
So it's on board on the 3.5 checklist. We do have the instructions and everything, but I'm noticing that we don't have very many forms that have got there. It feels like board 2 is kind of where things linger. So we might want to think about the end of board 2 a bit more so that things move on.
I think that's fair. Well, we've got 9 minutes till Teaching Tuesday. Kate, do you have a meeting at 1?
Yes.
Anything you would like to add?
No.
Sounds good.
Well, then is there anything else anyone wants to talk about, or I'll just cut the recording and we'll have a casual Tuesday for 9 minutes.
All
right, here we go.